Welcome back everyone for the summary of Sherlock Holmes, The Devil's Foot. In this novel, a man named Mr. Tregennis comes to Sherlock along with his secretary with a weird case. He started that last night he was playing cards with his two brothers and a sister Brenda in excellent spirit. He had to leave around 10, but the next morning he visited their house where his brother and sister were seated around the table exactly as he left them, the cards still spread in front of him and the fireplace lit up. His sister Brenda was dead, and his two brothers were just laughing, singing, and were out of their senses. There was no one in the house except their old caretaker, Miss Potter, which stated that she had slept early and had not heard anything in the night. Nothing was stolen from the house, and there is no explanation of what had frightened the woman to death or had left the two men mad in shock. Sherlock asked Tregennis few questions and he answered them all as well. At last, he said that his brother was staring at the window for a while. When he turned back, he saw something move, but he wasn't sure if it was a human or an animal. The doctor too couldn't figure out what was the reason of Brenda's death. When Sherlock and Watson had reached the destination, the Tregennis brothers were taken away. He asked the caretaker Miss Potter about the incident last night, and she again said that she did not hear anything during the night and almost fainted before she opened the windows in the morning as she saw the scene. Sherlock and Watson reached home and analyzed that the incident might not have taken place later than 11 o'clock that night, and just had to check the moments after Mr. Tregennis left. That night, a great lion hunter and explorer, Dr. Standale, approached Sherlock and said that he was the cousin of Mr. Tregennis and had returned back after hearing this news. He said that he had received this news from the secretary of Mr. Tregennis. Standale was about to return to Africa, had loaded his luggage at the ship too, but had left it and came to Sherlock. Sherlock asked him if he had any suspects, but he said nothing. The next morning, the secretary rushed to Sherlock and said that Mr. Tregennis was killed in the night in his hotel where he stayed. Sherlock stood up immediately from his chair and ran to the hotel with Watson and the secretary. They had reached there before the police or ambulance, having anything undisturbed. The body of Mr. Tregennis was on the chair and had a frightened look on his face, same as his sister Brenda had. The servant which entered the room in the morning also fainted. Sherlock analyzed how the murderer had got in from the window, lit the oil lamp, and after the murder sprang out of the window on the floor and ran away. He said Watson that there are things common in both the murders. Both had died of the same fright and a poisonous environment was involved as Miss Potter and the servant fainted as soon as they entered the scene. And also that the murderer lit the fire in both the cases and the burning had been the cause of the toxic effects. In the first case, the woman Brenda, who was probably more sensitive, had the complete effect of the drug, whereas the Tregennis brothers had been affected by the first stage. Sherlock took the sample from the lamp in an envelope. After reaching home, he put it in his lamp and sat beside it and asked Watson to sit beside him too. They saw vague shapes and had a strange feeling. Watson tried to scream but he couldn't. The shapes in the clouds broke and he saw Sherlock, who pulled him from the chair, and they ran out of the house. They couldn't breathe and it was intolerable. After a while, Sherlock realized everything about the case. The murderer was Mr. Tregennis, and the man which his brother saw at the window was just a distraction so Tregennis could put that substance in the fire because the window guy had never entered the house. Watson was confused as the second victim was Mr. Tregennis himself. Sherlock continued that there is one man who knows all about it. Sherlock Holmes called up Mr. Standale and asked him to be seated. The first question Sherlock asked him was, "Why did you kill Mr. Tregennis?" Standale's face was red and asked him why would he think so. Sherlock answered that the story of his luggage going to Africa and he coming back was itself a proof that he was somewhere involved. That night, after Standale left Sherlock's house, he waited for someone outside his hotel and then went in. Standale asked him how did he know that. Sherlock had followed him. Sherlock further said that Standale was awake the entire night and had some reddish sand in his pocket when he left early morning. He then went to the hotel where Mr. Tregennis stayed, climbed up to the window, lit the lamp, threw the sand in the fire, and after the death of Tregennis, he returned back. Standale was speechless and he took out a photograph from his pocket and put it on the table. Sherlock said that this is Miss Brenda. Standale said that they both loved each other but couldn't marry. The secretary of Mr. Tregennis knew about them and had informed Standale after Brenda died. That was the reason of him coming back, leaving his luggage in the ship. He took out a paper packet from his pocket, opened it, and said that this substance is called as the devil's foot root. He continued that the Tregennis family had a quarrel for money for a long time. Mr. Tregennis once had a visit to his collection and Standale said him about the devil's foot root. The next day, it was missing. And as soon as he heard that Brenda was dead and his two brothers were insane, he knew that his poison was used. And that Mr. Tregennis would be getting all the money and property. He said Holmes that he wasn't afraid of death and he can give him any punishment he likes. Sherlock asked him what plans he had now. Standale said that he has a work half done in Africa. Sherlock waited for a while and said, "Go complete it." Here comes the end of the novel Sherlock Holmes and the Devil's Foot. Please like this video and you can follow me on Instagram as NovelMaster007 to be updated. For more such novel summaries, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.